All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Benji-Sales live chat. It's so good to be back. It's so good to see everybody. How are you doing today? Hope you are all doing amazing and excellent. It's so good to see you again. It has been another one of these pretty slow news weeks in the video game industry. That seems to be the trend right now, right? We talked about this last week. It continues as of now, but I'm already seeing chat filling up. So apparently we're going to have a lot to talk about today thanks to you guys. So that is awesome. Thank you everyone who has shown up and it started filling up chat. All right, there's a couple things that I will give us for some news topics off the top that we can talk about. First of all, there is a huge slate of AAA Star Wars games on the way. Now, we kind of already knew that that was coming, but we got another big hitter on the docket. So we've just found out that Skydance Media, who was founded by Amy Hennig, right, who's famous for her history with co-creating the Uncharted series. She basically co-wrote. There was other people that helped her, but with the first 3 games in the franchise, right, it was Uncharted 4, where kind of Neil Druckmann started really taking over things. But before that, Amy Hennig, driving force behind Uncharted. We found out that her new studio is going to be making a brand new AAA Star Wars game, right? And we found out that that game is going to be, via the press release, an action-adventure game, which lines right up into her wheelhouse, right, with Uncharted. So very cool to see. And this leads us to the kind of slate that's going on here. So I'm going to give you off the top, I'm sure most of you saw my tweet, but kind of just to outline how aggressive and big the current Star Wars pipeline is going to be. So we've got a Jedi Fallen Order sequel coming from Respawn Entertainment, right? The first game was massive, huge, shattered expectations for what EA expected out of a single player game, gigantic. So that sequel is going to be huge as well. We found out that Respawn Entertainment is also making a Star Wars first-person shooter. No other details other than that, just a first-person shooter set in the Star Wars universe, also coming from Respawn. There is also a strategy game that's coming from Respawn. They're partnering with another studio. I apologize off the top of my head, I can't remember who that other team is, but so there's a strategy game coming. As we know, Quantic Dream is making Star Wars Eclipse, though it sounds like they're having issues, but it's still on the pipeline for now. The Skydance Media game I mentioned, Ubisoft Massive, who's known for their work on The Division, is making a story-driven open world game. And of course, there's the Knights of the Old Republic remake. So much Star Wars on the way. I know it sounds like a lot off the top, right? You're like, how many Star Wars games can we all realistically play? But I think one thing worth keeping in mind, many of these projects are very early in development, right? It's not like you're going to be playing 7 Star Wars games in the next 2 years, right? These are going to be pretty spread out. So I don't think it's going to feel as bad, in terms of being overwhelmed as what it sounds like when you read it on paper. Many of these games are going to be spread apart, right? Maybe you'll get a Star Wars game a year or so. I don't think that's too bad, right? Especially if they're coming from different devs and feel completely different. So that's one news topic we can talk about. Another big one that just came out, Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga has shattered the record for the biggest Lego launch ever. And that's really impressive when you consider how long Lego games have been around, right? It's not like one of those things that, there's been 3 Lego games and they've only been around for the last, 6 years. This is a long history of Lego games stretching way back. So to see it break the record, biggest Lego launch ever, amazing result. We found out that this game has sold over 3.2 million copies in only 2 weeks. That's incredible. I mean, that would be amazing for just about any game, let alone a Lego game. So we can talk about that if you want to, or really anything that you want. So if this is your first time ever as part of my live chat, the way it works, it's a stream, it's a show, it's 100% driven by you, your comments, your questions. There's going to be 2 ways to do that. First of all, of course, there's a free method. You just type a question, whatever you want. It pops into chat, and I get to as many free questions as I possibly can. If you want to guarantee that I get to your question, the way to do that is going to be the super chat option. Don't feel pressured, don't feel obligated at all. It's just a way to help support me in the channel, and it guarantees that I get to your question because I get to super chats immediately. I already can kind of feel like I'm probably not going to be hitting all the free questions today because chat is pumping, but we'll see how it goes. All right, everyone, I think we're good. No other real housekeeping notes off the top. Hope you're doing great. And I'm going to experiment with something, all right? I haven't run a poll before. I'm going to do a poll. I'm going to ask you really quick, respond in the poll before I get to your questions. Is there too many Star Wars games coming? I'm curious to see what you guys think. All right. Boom. All right, should be in the chat. Should be in the chat. So I'm very curious to see what y'all all think. All right. All right, let's get rocking on the questions. Okay. SD here is kicking us off right off the top. Oh, wait. I think there is a super chat. Let me hit the super chat really quick. All right, Plastic Hearts Podcast here with a $1.99 super chat to start us off. Thank you so much, Plastic Hearts, always in every single chat and always so supportive. Benji Boy, The Rock, and It Takes Two movie. Yeah, this is an interesting wrinkle, right? I think that the idea that there's a new It Takes Two movie, if anyone missed this, the game that won Game of the Year last year at the Game Awards, it's getting made into a movie, right? They're a big, Hollywood movie. It's being made by Amazon Studios. Sounds like this is going straight to Amazon Prime, so it's not going to be one that is in theaters, at least as far as I'm understanding right now with the report. But Amazon puts a lot of money behind their projects, so it's not going to be some small little thing either, right? This is a big project. The wrinkle here that is weird that I think, first of all, like I said, I don't think any of us would be surprised to hear It Takes Two is getting a movie because as we've seen that Hollywood is all in right now in video game IP, whether it's Sonic the Hedgehog, which is doing big numbers, whether it's Halo on Paramount Plus, whether it's Uncharted, which did very well, whether it's The Last of Us that's coming up. There's so many video game projects in the works and the game of the year, right? No surprise. The real surprise here is The Rock. Now, to be clear, as of now, we don't know that he's actually in the movie. He's producing it, which I'm sure The Rock's a good producer, right? He does a lot of work in the industry. I'm actually a bit of a fan of The Rock. I don't think he's like the most amazing actor in the world, but his movies tend to be pretty fun, right? It's not one of those guys that's going to go out there and win a ton of Oscars, but I really liked Jungle Cruise that came out, really liked the Jumanji movies he's been in. Like most of his movies, they're just fun, right? They're fun movies. So I'm very curious. There's a report in this Variety article that he might star in it, but they said it's not official. So I think they're still ironing that out. If Dwayne Johnson's just going to be producing or if he's also going to be in the movie as well. One thing I would say, though, that should be encouraging for you, anyone that's worried about this, Joseph Fares from Hazelight, right, who is basically the guy in charge there that made this game. He's also producing on it as well, and also the writers for it are the team behind the Sonic the Hedgehog movies, which have been really well received. So there's actually quite a bit of talent behind this, to be honest. Like, I totally get it. The Dwayne Johnson thing is pretty weird, but other than him, seeing Joseph involved, seeing the team behind Sonic involved, like, those are actually pretty decent signs. So I'm optimistic about it right now. We'll have to see, how the rest of the casting looks. But I would say there is some good signs here, even if the Dwayne Johnson thing is a little weird. All right, let's look at the poll. All right, let me see how that poll's looking. Okay, so I asked if there's too many Star Wars games. And as of now, with your votes, 53% of you are saying yes, and 47% of you say no. Interesting. So most of you guys, it's pretty close to 50-50, but the majority right now thinks there's too much Star Wars. Very interesting to see. So we'll have to see how that plays out over time. All right, everybody, let's get pumping into your free questions. SD, Benji Boy, everything is so quiet in the game industry, and after months of restock in Xbox, is everything back again to normally zero stock? Normal without stock is what I mean. Okay, so asking about Xbox Series. Here's what I can say about it. So March, as we know, was a fantastic month for Xbox Series. The NPD numbers haven't come out yet. They're so late that it's kind of crazy. They really need to figure something out so that the press release isn't this far after the month. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. It's not a knock towards anyone at NPD because I'm sure that there are reasons behind this, right? I doubt it's just something that they decided, hey, we're going to have this thing come out a month later. But man, it's tough whenever it's this far delayed. So NPD numbers haven't come out yet, but I can assure you they're very, very big for Xbox. We saw in Europe the console do very well. We saw in the UK the console do very well. And even in February, no, not February, January, Xbox Series, or maybe, no, I can't remember off the top of my head. It was January or February. One of those 2 months, PS5 was ahead, and one of them, Xbox, was ahead in NPD. So as we know, though, March was a great month for Xbox. What I can say right now about stock SD, Xbox Series X has definitely fallen off in the past, I'd say like 2 weeks. Early April, that first week of April, Xbox Series X was still doing very well. Shipments have died down. Now, there are still some going up. I believe Best Buy just put some up today. But I will tell you, at least as of right now, here towards the end of April, that the month doesn't look as big as March was for Xbox. So we'll have to see. You never know. Xbox Series S still is plenty in stock, to be honest, in the US. Supply has kind of met demand on that console, but X is facing, big time shortages again. Yeah, for sure. And then SD also says, I'm seeing lots of restocks for PS5, but of course it rapidly sells out. When will things become normal? 2024 question mark. I think they're going to start to really improve next year, to be honest with you. I don't know if we'll be fully into normal, but seeing some of the shipments that I'm seeing out of Xbox recently, I think next year things are going to be pretty good. Now, do I think they're going to be 100% just like fixed, zero shortages ever? I don't know about that, but I'll be honest with you. I'm expecting 2023 to be quite a bit better than this year was, for sure. I think at least. We'll have to see. Split End 89. Benji, are video games going too crazy with crossovers? Just today we've seen Wu-Tang Clan and Moon Knight in Fortnite and Godzilla vs. Kong in Warzone. Can this continue and be profitable? I think it needs to fit the game. There's a reason that companies are doing this, and that's because that they are being very successful with it. So I would say like Fortnite, this is just baked into Fortnite. It's just what they do. From the beginning, it's all about crossovers with Fortnite. Godzilla vs. Kong and Warzone's pretty freaking weird to me, to be honest with you. But I'm sure they'll probably make something fun out of it. It just, I did not expect I would see Godzilla and Kong in Call of Duty. So we'll have to see. I think it will continue because clearly a lot of companies are finding success with this. But it probably also needs to fit. I don't know if you could just force this into every game, right? Like Halo, I feel like, just to name a random game, I think it'd be kind of weird if you're playing Halo and all of a sudden there's like John Wick skins, right? Like we saw with Fortnite. That to me feels a little weird. I think Xbox could have a lot of success crossing over IPs they own into Halo, right? Like Doomguy armor, that has to happen. If you don't have Doomguy armor in Halo, what are you doing, right? So I think that there are natural crossovers that can work at some of these companies, and sometimes it could potentially be forced. It just needs to fit. But with Fortnite, kind of anything goes, right? We already know that. They can do whatever they want. And what's up, Split End? So good to see you. Travel Peck. Sup, man? Question here. Why Sony delayed their investor call from ending of April to early May? I was looking for information, and that never, ever happened in years. The only investor call they delayed was, I think, in 2019 or 2020, one of those years when COVID was a big thing. So they delayed like 2 weeks or 1 week. But before that, never. And after that, never. Only this one coming. Travel Peck, I have not been looking very, very closely at the dates for the PlayStation investor call. In fact, off the top of our Sony investor call, off the top of my head, I couldn't even tell you that date. I know it's coming up. Why they would have delayed it? I mean, there has been all these rumblings that there's a Sony acquisition coming for gaming. That's huge. I've heard the studio, and we'll see if it actually happens. But, I mean, maybe they're locking that down, and it's a big deal, and they want to get it out before they make their presentation, or maybe just something's delayed, right, in their reporting. It's hard to say, Travel Peck. Hard to say. Maybe they're also still doing some stuff where they're locking down the next 3 months of PlayStation shipments, and they want to kind of have a solid number on what they think they're going to ship in the next 3 months before they do their investor call, because right now so much of Sony's dependent on the PlayStation brand. Not completely. Sony Pictures has had a lot of success in their other divisions as well, but PlayStation is a huge part of their business, unlike Xbox with Microsoft. So, I don't know. There's a lot of reasons it could be Travel Peck, but we'll have to see. Mac McCoffin. I hope that was right. Benji, have you heard anything about Age of Empires coming to Xbox consoles? Colt Eastwood was talking about a few days ago. Have you heard anything? Thank you and love your show, bro. Thank you so much. I've heard that they're working on it. I've heard that it is something that they're trying to make happen. But Matt, beyond that, I hate to say it, I have no other additional info than that. Not even just like stuff that I'm holding back that I really know. I really don't. I have heard that they're trying to make Age of Empires work on Xbox. How that's going to be, right? Super streamlined, I'd assume. I don't think they can make a straight one-for-one port of Age of Empires 4 unless they were to like just fully it's mouse and keyboard only. So, and they're not going to do that on a console, right? Maybe they'll have that option that you can plug it in, but it's not going to be like the default. If you don't have mouse and keyboard, you can't play this. So I'm sure it's a challenge, right? That's a kind of game that really works best on mouse and keyboard, and adapting it for controller is probably very difficult. So I do think it's going to come, Matt. I don't have any other additional info other than that it's something that's been looked at. I think it's going to happen, but I can't tell you when. All right. I love this. Travel Pack saying thanks and bring on the filthy. I think that means that you are a bring on the filthy. You are a, oh my goodness, my brain is not working. Let me see. Come on. A John Campea fan. Me too. I'm a fan of John Campea as well. I watch him every single day. Love that crew. So I'm assuming that's what Travel Peck is saying with Bring on the Filthy. Love the John Campea show, and shout out to John Campea. I'm pretty sure that's what you're referencing here. Javier Macias Leon. Benji, how are you? I hope you're doing great. I'm doing so good. I honestly, I don't want to go into too much personal stuff, y'all, but man, right now, I would say I think I'm the best I've been since I started on Twitter and YouTube and all this stuff. My depression has really decreased big time, so thank you so much. There are a ton of Star Wars games in development. Which one are you most excited about? Fun question. Also, what do you think about Insomniac's multiplayer game? Okay, so first of all, the Star Wars project I'm most excited about. This might be the most boring answer, but it's Fallen Order 2. I really liked Jedi Fallen Order, the first one. Loved that game. I thought there was a few things they could definitely improve on for the sequel, but I really loved that game. So I already am confident in that one, right? Because I've played the first game in the franchise. So I would say that Fallen Order sequel right now, we haven't seen anything else out of these other games, right? And we haven't even seen Fallen Order 2, but we at least know, we've played the first game, so we know the basis of it. So that by far to me is my most anticipated. And it's funny, but my second most anticipated is also the second Respawn game. It's going to be the first-person shooter coming out of Respawn. I'm so confident in the quality out of that studio. And I love Titanfall and Titanfall 2, right? So clearly that team is extraordinary, and Apex Legends, so they know how to make a freaking sick first-person shooter. So it's going to be the two Respawn games. The two I'm most excited for, Fallen Order sequel and the first-person shooter coming out of that team as well. Now, Insomniac's multiplayer game, I mean, this could be anything. It could be something to do with Resistance, right? There's a lot of people that have been begging for a reboot of Resistance. And Sony doesn't really have any big first-person shooters, right? We've talked about this in the past, like they have before in previous gens, right? They had Killzone, they had the Resistance series, but it's been a long time since Sony had a big first-person shooter come out of their first-party studios. And I know that there is some competition in that space, but I think that there's room as well. So maybe it's a reboot of Resistance. Maybe it's a multiplayer Spider-Man project, which also would not surprise me in the slightest. Or it could even be a new IP. But those are all potentials, and I think any of them's a good idea. Honestly, any of those three. If Insomniac came out and said, hey, Resistance is back, it's a reboot, I think that would go over really well with the fan base. If they said, hey, besides Spider-Man 2, we also have a Spider-Man multiplayer thing coming that's co-op, I think that would be highly, highly, people excited for, or even a new IP. Any of them could work, but it's hard to say for sure, Javier. I think we had a super chat, so let me hit that super chat really quick. Oh, wow, we have several super chats. Let me hit these super chats really quick. Matt Duffy with a 2. Thank you so much, Matt Duffy, saying, Benji, you're a legend. Keep it up. Matt Duffy, thank you for always making me so hyped. Thank you for always, saying such good compliments. I'm telling you, it stokes me up. It fires me up. And it really means a lot to me, man. So thank you so much, Matt. You rock as well. Power with a 199 super chat. What's your general outlook on CD Projekt Red with the new delays? Man, so here's the thing. The Witcher's legs have been unbelievable. So the last year, y'all, this is nuts to me. I actually did not expect this whenever they put out their numbers. But The Witcher in the last year, The Witcher 3, 10 million units. What in the freaking world? Let me look at that again. I'm saying that's just in the last year. Like, what in the world? How is that game still selling 10 million units a year? I want to make sure I did not misstate that. Let me see. But I'm pretty sure that's right. Yes. Yes. So April 2021, they reported they were at over 30 million sales. April 2022, they reported they're over 40 million sales. That's unbelievable legs. And one thing that made me realize, I wasn't like super thinking that this Witcher next gen version that they're working on was going to be that big a deal, right? I thought, okay, people that already own the game might go back and play a little bit, but is this really going to help sales? I'm going to go back on that just because the legs have been so spectacular on this series. Clearly, the Netflix show really helped this. This is one of the biggest and first examples we've seen of a live action adaptation having a significant impact on video game sales. There's no debate, zero question, the Netflix series boosted Witcher 3's sales volume. So the fact that it's still able to sell this strongly, this late, I think that next gen version is going to push some units. I don't know it's going to sell another 30 million units because of this, but I think it will be a big deal. So delaying it, making sure the quality is high is probably very important because this is probably going to sell. I'll be honest. I'm someone that still has a lot of confidence in CD Projekt Red. I'm not somebody that thinks it's okay what they did with Cyberpunk. I don't instant forgive them for the complete fiasco around that game. Nothing at all, right? I think people should have went hard on them, and it makes sense that they did. And we can see from Cyberpunk's legs that clearly those issues did impact its legs. So, but there's so much talent there. Witcher 2, I think, is a phenomenal game. Witcher 3, I think, is a phenomenal game. And from what I'm hearing from a lot of people, now that Cyberpunk's pretty stable, they say that's pretty amazing as well. I still haven't played Cyberpunk. I've owned it since launch day, but I'm going to play it soon. But I think there's still a lot of talent there. I think Cyberpunk was a massive learning lesson from them. And Power, I'll be honest, I'm pretty optimistic about them long term. Now, again, I would be a little cautious going into their next games. Like I said, I don't think you can just instantly take their word, everything's sugar and rainbows. But I also don't think it's one of those situations people should panic and all their games are going to suck from now on because they have a proven track record of a lot of great games. So we'll have to see, but I'm pretty optimistic about it long term. Thank you for that super chat. Lorenzo Arahu here with the super chat. I think that Sony delayed the Spider-Verse movie to next year because the Spider-Man 2 game and pushed a lot of marketing. Sounds like a perfect plan. Ooh, that's not a bad idea. Lorenzo? I don't want to say that was the only reason. I'm sure there's work to be done on this. But, yeah, I will tell you that those two will help each other a lot. Yeah, I do think so. Overall Spider-Man hype assisting each other. Get hype for the movie, get hype from the game. I think so. You know, one thing I was pointing out over on Twitter last year was how the release of Spider-Man No Way Home was boosting Miles Morales sales. We saw some pretty clear evidence of that as well. So, yeah, Lorenzo, again, I don't think that's probably the only reason. It's a big, important movie for Sony Pictures, so I'm sure that they also have just making sure the quality is good and they had to delay it to get that up. But I do agree with you, Lorenzo, that the hype from both can assist each other. Yes, I do think so. I do agree with that. All right, super chats are cleared. Thank you so much for those. All right, so a lot of discussion, which is fine. Love to see it. Just trying to find the next question. Yeah, and Travel Pack, I really don't know. I can't tell you why they delayed the call. It is weird, but I'm honestly not sure. I'm not sure. A lot of discussion about that, but I'm not sure. Could be a number of things. Benji here. Hi, Benji. Any thoughts on if Nintendo has more games for September? Many believe Splatoon 3 will replace Xenoblade 3 slot, but could there be an unannounced game? This is a great question. I do think Splatoon was delayed. We don't know this, but considering we've seen some on Splatoon 3, but we still haven't seen a ton. And every time they've shown this game, something that's kind of unlike Nintendo, a lot of times, you know, maybe the very first time they show a game, might not necessarily have a date, but usually, I'm not going to say 100% of the time, but usually by the time you see it a second time, Nintendo has a date on that, right? Like they're a company that's not afraid to wait to show something pretty late just so they can have a date on it to get you hyped. Look at what just happened with this last Nintendo Direct, right? Mario Strikers, first time they showed it, boom, here's a date. We Switch Sports, never seen it, boom, here's a date with the trailer. Like they like to do that. They like when we show something at the latest, the second time we show something, here's a date for you. Splatoon, the last time they showed it, again, didn't have a date. It just said summer. So that was always, to me, a little nebulous. My guess, Benji, with the Xenoblade 3 situation, for anyone that missed it, Nintendo actually moved Xenoblade 3's release date up 2 months. There's no reason to do that, I think, unless something else is going to go into that slot, right? Could it be an unannounced game? I would say that's possible, but Benji, I don't think so. I believe that what happened was Splatoon just needed a couple more months. Xenoblade probably was basically almost done. Nintendo's done this many times where they've held games where they're basically done just for release timing. They were probably like, hey, Xenoblade 3 is essentially done. We can move this thing up. We can slot Splatoon back a couple more months to polish it up. That makes a whole lot of sense. So we don't know that for a fact, but I will not be shocked at all if the next time they show Splatoon 3, it's now dated for September. Wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. Kind of makes sense with everything that we've seen. But it's not a guarantee. There could be an unannounced game, but I don't think so. I think Splatoon really does explain the situation. Because there's no reason to move that up if Splatoon's still coming right in that time frame, right? Because there's so many games releasing in that short window. If Splatoon's there as well, wouldn't really make sense to move it up unless something else is getting pushed back. And then another question here from Benji. Any thoughts on devs making negative comments on competitive games? For example, Ubisoft and Guerrilla devs dissing Elden Ring. Is this okay? Do they have a point? I'll be honest, I don't really like that. Here's what I'll say. If it's like legit criticism in terms of like it's like it's a solid criticism, right? Like there's something about the game that you just think doesn't work great. You know, you don't have to always go around praising everything, right? I'm a pretty positive guy. I choose to tweet mostly about things I feel good about or positive about. In terms of just like my opinions, right? Not necessarily with sales and stuff, but if I don't like something, I usually just don't tweet about it because I don't like to spread negativity, which isn't the end of the world, right? Some people are great critics. That's why you need strong reviewers who know how to review games, and they can be negative. I'm just saying for me and my platform, I try to spread positivity. So I only really tweet about things I like, and things I don't like, I just don't tweet about. But here's the thing. Game devs are going to have a way better perspective on things like mechanics and stuff like that than your average Joe, right? Because that's what these people do for a living. So I would say, Benji, as long as it's handled professionally, it's done well, you're just like, hey, I don't think this aspect of this game works great. I wish they did this instead. I mean, that's totally fair, right? Developers are just people, just like anybody else. They're all going to have opinions. I don't like it, and I don't see this a ton, but there has been a few times I've seen it, where people, it seems like, are just taking shots without, like, constructive criticism. It's just like a random, oh, this game's lame, it's overrated. You don't see this a lot, but occasionally you do see it. I don't like that. That I'm not a fan of. It's just not a great look when you work in the industry as well and you're kind of taking shots. Don't we want everything to succeed? So again, that is a little more rare. It pops up occasionally. That I'm not a fan of. But as long as it's constructive criticism, I think that's totally valid. Yeah, that's totally valid. I think there might have been a super chat. Let me hit that super chat really quick. We had 2 super chats come in. Benji Boy, you trying to star in Morbius 2? Son of Morbius playing his even paler son. Yeah, so I am a pale dude. I don't go in the sun much, to be honest with you. And it has helped me not age that well. That bad. I think I look decent for my age. So I try to avoid the sun, I'll be honest with you. It makes me super pale, but I'm okay with that. I'll go in it during the summer and stuff, but a lot of times I avoid the sun. It does a lot of skin damage, so I try to avoid the sun as best as I can. Put on sunscreen, SPF, go in the sun when you need to. It's good to get some sun. You need some vitamin D, but I also am not going to lay out and tan and do a lot of damage to my skin. So I'm somebody that wants to live a really long time. I want to be super healthy. I want to look good as long as I can. Not that I'm like a good looking guy, but you know what I mean? I don't want to look super aged super fast. So yeah, I am super pale. Probably always will be, but hey, it means less sun damage. So thanks for that super chat, Plastic Hearts. And Benji Boy with another 5. Hi Benji, why some live games that were failures recovered Final Fantasy 14 and others can't, like Anthem? Ooh, this is a good question. Which current live title in trouble could pull it off? Great question, actually, here, Benji. Great question. It all depends on how much the company behind them is willing to invest. With Final Fantasy XIV, the entire reason why they were able to pull that thing around was because Square Enix went all in on fixing it. And that brand was so important to Square Enix, right? It wasn't one of those things where they were like, hey, 14, because people forget because it's so successful now. But when Final Fantasy 14 came out, it was a bit of a disaster, to be honest. It was in a bad place. Players from Final Fantasy 11 that were migrating over were super unhappy. It looked like the thing was in serious danger. They put in a ton of effort, a ton of work, listened to feedback, and it wasn't cheap. I'm telling you that right now. Redoing, essentially, because they basically redid the game. It wasn't like, hey, we're going to fix a couple things. They essentially rebooted this thing completely. That cost Square Enix a lot of freaking money, but they thought the long-term payoff was worth it. Something like Anthem, I think EA was just like, we need to cut our losses on this thing. It's not being well received. We don't think that we're going to be able to turn this ship around. And to even do it, we're probably going to have to spend a ton of money. And is Anthem as a brand worth that, considering at the time it was a new IP? Instead, they could just pivot to something else, while Final Fantasy is so core and important to Square Enix. So I think that's mostly it. A lot of it's going to be how much money you're willing to budget into fixing this thing, and if you think in the long term it's going to be worth the financial kickback to do it. So it's just going to vary. Now, what live title do I think can be recovered? I think Halo. I really think Halo Infinite. It's in a lot of trouble right now, but the core gameplay of Halo Infinite is literally spectacular. I mean, it truly is spectacular. I'm someone that right now, I love Halo Infinite, but I'll be honest with you, I haven't played Halo Infinite in I mean, it's been like, what, a month and a half since I've played that game because there's just nothing for me to do, right? I finished the Season 1 Battle Pass. I finished all of the passes for the small events that they do. And the problem with Halo is just lack of content. There's very, very few people that played Halo Infinite's multiplayer and just thought the game played like trash. Is there some of those people? Yeah, but most people that played Halo Infinite were like, hey, this game plays great. The problem is lack of content. So if they can really turn things around, Season 2 is a start, but it is not a good start. I mean, it's an improvement over nothing, right? But 2 maps only and a battle pass, I think they're making strides. I think long term, Halo can be turned around because the core game is so good. Do I ever think that Halo is going to be like the biggest game in the world, competing with Apex Legends and Fortnite as the biggest game out there? No, I don't think Halo is going to ever be that big. But can it be like a solid, successful service title with a good amount of players? Yeah, I really think it can because the core game's so good. So that would be one I think really can be turned around still as Halo. I really, really am confident that it can. Now, if 343 will pull it off, who knows? But can it be? Yeah, I think so. Halo would be the one I would point to. The one I would be least confident in is Battlefield 2042. I think that is, I could be wrong, but the difference between Halo and Battlefield, Halo's issue is mostly content. Battlefield, I believe the core playing of the game just is wrong, right? I've talked about this in the past. I think the maps are too big. I think the player count is too high, and it made the whole thing kind of just feel like a jumbled mess. It didn't feel like there was flow to the battles and people knew where to go. And so I think Battlefield is going to be a lot harder to turn around because I think the core game itself is fundamentally flawed. Whereas Halo, it's just like, it just needs way more content. That's the main issue with the game. So, yep, those are my thoughts there. All right, thank you for those super chats, everybody. Back to your free questions. All right. Joseph Crank. Benji-Sales, here's my question. When do you think Bungie deal will close? And I'm seeing Amazon, Target, Best Buy, etc. restocks of PS5 in April. Do you think Sony will announce in their investor call on May an increase in the forecast of PS5 shipments? Hopefully, thoughts. Joseph, great question. So this has been the big debate, right? We talked about this a lot on my last chat, and I think even the one before that, about PlayStation 5 console sales. As we know, the start of this year has been, again, there's no other way to phrase it, and let me be clear here. The start of this year has been basically a disaster for PlayStation 5 console sales. That's not a shot at PlayStation, and it's not anything to do with demand. It literally has to do with inventory. We knew coming into this, they were only forecasting 2 million units in 3 months. I mean, that is a disaster. You have an entire planet of people that want Xboxes or PlayStations, and for the whole every market, you're going to provide 2 million consoles in 3 months. That's less than 1 million consoles a month for the entire world, right? That's not good. That's just, there's no other way to phrase it. So we all knew this was coming. I was warning people as soon as that forecast went out. I made a tweet about it, and I was like, listen, people, shortages aren't going to improve in the next 3 months. They're going to get worse. It's going to be even harder to find a PS5. So the big question on everyone's mind, what is this next forecast going to look like? What are they projecting through April through June? I'll be honest, Joseph, I was pretty concerned with early April. First 2 weeks of this month looked like, again, kind of a disaster for PlayStation. And I was being like, dang, dude, if there is still not PS5 shipping out at a high volume, what in the world is this next quarter going to look like? And I was really worried. I will say, and it's only 1 week, but this week is looking like a big improvement. So it's looking like a lot of retailers are stocking PS5. They're still selling out quickly. And we also saw in the UK last week a nice boost for PS5 sales. So Joseph, one big restock week isn't enough for us to firmly say, hey, they're going to raise their shipment forecast for the next 3 months, right? 1 week out of 3 months doesn't tell you a ton. Could just be they were able to get these consoles out for this past week or so. But I will say seeing these restocks is making me feel a little bit better. So the thing I've been saying on my chat, the thing I'm hoping to see out of PS5 with their forecast is 3 million units for this quarter. I would like to see, hey, this next quarter we're going to be hitting 1 million consoles a month worldwide. Obviously, I would like even more than that, but I think going over 3 million probably isn't likely considering it was 2 million last quarter, so low. It's hard for me to think they could just double that and do like 6 million, right? So I'm hoping they can do 1 million units per month coming up. I'm hoping to see 3 million, maybe 3.5, right? Maybe you could get even a little bit higher than that, but it's not a lock, Joseph. We really need to see what Sony says, but it is looking like a solid week for PlayStation right now. Yeah, last week or so is looking pretty good. All right, I think we had a super chat drop. Let me hit that super chat really quick. We did. Dead Planet here with a 10. Thank you so much, Dead Planet. What's your take on people who say Game Pass has been a thing for 5 years and it still hasn't taken off? To me and probably Phil, Game Pass will arrive when all these studios start releasing games. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's the big thing. It's all about those first-party games. Microsoft still hasn't hit that point where they want to be, where there's a big first-party game hitting every quarter. You know, I've said this a lot. The main draw of Game Pass is the first-party games. There's just no doubt about it. The main thing that makes people be like, hey, I think it's worth investing in is getting those games that are usually $60 the day they come out, right? Don't get me wrong, third party, indies, nice library, of course all of that helps. But the big draw, the thing that's like, dude, I gotta be subscribed to Game Pass, is when you're getting a steady flow of big first party games. And Phil knows that. That's why Phil Spencer has gone out with Microsoft and bought all these studios. It wasn't an accident. They didn't just decide, hey, you know, we're just gonna buy publishers like Bethesda and publishers like Activision and all these teams, you know, just to sell an Xbox console, right? That wouldn't, I don't think, make enough financial sense to go out and spend that much money just to sell a piece of hardware. They bought all those studios to fuel Game Pass growth. So I agree, Dead Planet. It's all going to be about whenever all these things start hitting super regularly. There's also still a question in the industry, how high can total demand for a subscription service be, right? We have never seen a subscription service in the video game industry hit those crazy big, 100 million subscriber numbers, right? Is there demand for that? Or is there some demand for subscriptions, but a big chunk of people still like to buy their games? It's an open question. We still don't have a 100% answer on what the ceiling is, right? We know that these subscription services can do big numbers. They can get tens of millions of subscribers, but can they get to 100+ million subscribers? We don't really know until we see a service do it. So the ceiling is still a bit of an open question, Dead Planet, but I would say, am I confident Microsoft's going to hit 50 million subscribers to Game Pass? Yes, I'm supremely confident they're going to hit that number. At some point, they will hit 50 million subs. Can they hit 100 million? I don't know. And I don't think many people in this industry truly know, right? I think a lot of us, some people might be very confident in that. I think probably Satya Nadella and Phil Spencer are confident they can get to 100 million. But can they? We won't know. We won't know until we see a service do it. So, bit of a question there. But yes, to me, the main thing is first party. We need to see how it grows when the first party games are every quarter. Every quarter, you're getting a big game. Every single quarter. That will really tell us a lot on, the trajectory this can go. Timmer with a 10. Thank you so much, Timmer. And thank you for being in like every chat and so supportive. How far do you think the Pokemon series sales will go when the Pokemon Company updates its website? Currently sits at 380 million copies as of March 2021. Is 420 or 430 million possible? Well, we know that in that time frame, let's see, where is Diamond and Pearl at? And we'll have an updated number on this soon. Let's see. Where is that at? Off the top of my head, I don't know. And this was in a very short window that we have this number for. But I want to see something really quick. All right. So Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl as of December 31st They did 13.97, essentially 14 million. It's going to be millions higher than that. We have Pokemon Arceus, which we know did, what was that, 6.5 million in just a couple weeks. Yeah, 6.5 million. Not a couple weeks, it's a couple days. So that alone right there puts you at 20 million. And those numbers are as of the 2021, which is quite a while back, right? I mean, yeah, I think so, Timmer. Looking at it, I think so. Because just the numbers we have right now for just Arceus and just Diamond and Pearl put you at 20 million. So that gets you from 380 to 400. And then another 20 million between the two of them plus legacy sales for the other games over that past year. Yeah, I think so. I think that's fair. 420 to 430. Yeah, I think it is possible, Timmer. I do think so. Because again, those Arceus numbers and those Diamond and Pearl numbers I'm listing, that 20 million combined, that's in a very short window. It was only like a month for Diamond and Pearl, and it was only a couple of days for Arceus. So those are going to be millions higher. Plus, like I said, continued legs of legacy titles. It's possible. Yeah, 420 to 430. It's doable. Now, I would say not for sure a lot because it depends on the legacy game sales, but yeah, very, very good shot. Yeah. Super chat here from Highlander. What's up, Highlander? Great to see you, man. With a 10 super chat. Benji, hope you're doing great. Doing so good. A friend broke my Xbox One X. He replaced it with a Series X. Dope. So now I have two Series X's and a Series S and still cannot get a PS5. Who do I have to talk to? Well, I'm sorry to hear about the One X, but that's an amazing replacement. Who do you have to talk to about a PS5? Who knows, right? I know a lot of people in retail, and I know a lot of people in the video game industry, and it's still freaking ridiculously hard to get a PS5. My best advice, Highlander, is going to be following Wario64. You probably already do, but if you don't, and turn on alerts. I know it might be annoying getting an alert for every time Wario tweets because he tweets a lot, which is totally understandable because he's tweeting tons of deals and links. But I honestly think that might be your best bet. Following him, get that alert as soon as they go up, order. It's a challenge. It's going to be a real friggin' challenge, Highlander. Hopefully things improve in the next 3 months, but we don't know. We don't know because we haven't gotten that forecast yet. So that would be my best advice. Follow Wario and turn on those alerts. Probably going to be your best bet. But pretty sick you have two Series X's and a Series S. That's amazing. And thank you for that super chat. All right. Michael Yu. Since it's been relatively slow for industry news, I'll just ask, what do you think of Tunic so far? Oh, great question. I don't get a lot of questions about how I'm liking something, so loving getting that. I read that one person made the game. If that's true, that's insane. Yo, Michael Yu, Tunic is spectacular. So I'm still early in. I cannot recommend this game highly enough. If you have Game Pass, dude, it's very easy to access this game. It's essentially quote free for you. If you're already subbed to Game Pass, you can just download this game. It's on there. Whether you're PC or console, play this game. If you don't have Game Pass, I encourage you, go out and buy it. If you like anything that's somewhat like old school Zelda. Now, it's not a clone, right? You've seen some people be like, when it was very first shown, oh, is Tunic just a Link to the Past, clone? It's really not. It has some of its own elements, surprisingly Dark Souls type elements. Like, if I was to describe this game, which sounds like a funny crossover, but it's old school Zelda crossed with Dark Souls. Like, for real. Game's pretty challenging. It essentially has bonfires that you rest at, but it also has a lot of those Zelda type elements. Not necessarily the modern 3D Zeldas, but those classic Zelda games. It is spectacular. I love Tunic. I think we're going to get a lot of nominations for Indie Game of the Year out of this game at the end of the year. It is great. Cannot recommend it enough. Yes, one person was the core developer behind Tunic. Now, I believe he had a few people help him, like in terms of like support, like he went out and had some people assist him with the game, but the core game, like a lot of the game itself, was done by one person, which is staggering. Yeah, it's shocking that someone could pull off a game that quality by themselves. Mostly, I know he had assistance, but like the core development was done by like one person. That's insane. But yeah, it's excellent. Eddie Brock, hey there, Benji boy. Do you think PlayStation will develop an MMO, JRPG, or FPS games via their first-party studios? Do you think they will expand their horizons beyond third-person over-the-shoulder games? Yes, I expect a lot more variety. So we talked about this a bit last week. JRPGs, no. I don't think you'll ever see a PlayStation studio make a JRPG. I hate to say that. I know there's a ton of people that are demanding it from Sony. I think you'll never see it. I think they're going to just depend on Japanese studios like Square Enix to make those games for them. They don't really have a team. They don't really have a JRPG team. And Asobi, who is the new quote-quote Japanese studio for PlayStation, I don't think they're going to be making those kinds of games either. So JRPG specifically, Eddie Brock, no. I think those are just going to come from third party. MMO? Not impossible. I will say not extremely likely, but not impossible. They kind of have that in Destiny with Bungie. It's like an MMO light. And Bungie in the future maybe could do something else. It sounds like their next game's not an MMO. It's an online game, but it sounds like it's more competitive focused. Maybe. I'll say JRPG, no. MMO, maybe. FPS, likely. That's how I would rank those. FPS, Sony is going to make an FPS game at some point. Which studio it's going to come out of, not 100% sure. And to be clear, Eddie's specifically talking about their first-party teams. I don't think Eddie's referencing like the partnerships they have, right, with some independent teams that are coming up, because we already know there's some of that happening. But out of their internal teams, FPS, yes, it will happen. Which teams do it, I'm not sure. But yes, there will be an FPS game. MMO, maybe. JRPG, no. That's how I would rank them. Fernando Harada. Hi, Benji. How are you? Doing great. Do you have information about the rumored Sony acquisition? Yes, I've heard it, and I've heard the studio. If it is a developer or a publisher, big or small, American, Japanese, or European. Can't comment on anything else. I ain't going to say it for the exact same reason Jeff Grubb won't name this studio, because we don't know, and unless Jeff got more recent info than me, we don't know if this is, like, legit. And I ain't putting a name on it. And if Jeff ain't putting a name on it, I ain't putting a name on it, because I guarantee you Jeff Grubb is more informed about the situation than I am. So if he's not willing to name that studio because he's that unsure if it's going to happen, you bet I ain't going to go on record saying it. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see. I can't comment on anything else other than, yes, I heard the studio and I've heard about it. Dear Amaro here, do you think CD Projekt Remedy Techland are in talks to be acquired? Oh, okay, great question. CD Projekt to me doesn't seem impossible for acquisition, but I would oh man, possible. It's possible. CD Projekt actually is not impossible. Not the most likely thing in the world, especially being publicly traded. Public traded companies aren't impossible to get a hold of, as we're seeing with Activision Blizzard. But I think it's always any of these acquisitions that these companies are going to look for. I think it's just way more attractive to look at a privately owned studio, because it's just so much easier. So much easier when there's nothing to do with investors and trading involved, right? It's a million times easier. So publicly traded companies, especially big ones, I'm always going to say is a bigger challenge. Not impossible, but it's a bigger challenge than a privately owned one. So CD Projekt, maybe, but it might be tough. Remedy, I'm going to say no, just because they have so much contract work right now. Like, Remedy is, of all the studios out there right now that are independent, Remedy is doing things right. Like, my goodness, whether you love Remedy games like I do, or whether you're not a fan, I mean, listen to this. They have money coming in right now from 3 different publishers. That's a fantastic spot to be in if you're independently owned. They have 505 Games, which is helping them fund and publish the sequel for Control, as well as a multiplayer type thing that's set in the Control universe. So you got 505 Games money coming in. They've got Alan Wake 2 coming, which is published by Epic Games, so they got Epic money coming in. And then we just found out that they're making these Max Payne games, which means they have Rockstar and Take-Two money coming in. So Remedy, to me, very unlikely, just because they are getting funding like crazy. They are not hurting to get games made. They're getting funded all over the place by different publishers. So it's not impossible, but like, if you're Remedy, you're not in a position where you like need to sell because you're getting funding from all over the place. So Remedy, I think, is in a pretty solid spot. Maybe one day, I just don't think right now. Techland, I could very much see Techland. Techland, I could very much see. Who would get them? I don't know. I think they could, though. I think Techland could be a potential acquisition target. I wouldn't rate it as the most likely out there, but I don't think it's impossible. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on those studios. Techland, possibly. Yoda Soda, Benji. Lego Skywalker Saga is huge. Yes, it's gigantic. The future is bright for Traveler's Tales, right? The Lego company is definitely going to continue their partnership with Traveler's Tales games after the huge milestone with the Skywalker Saga. So the rumors saying they will lose the license is out of the window. Yoda Soda, I don't know all the details behind the contracts, but I would say Lego would be they'd be making a big mistake to not continue this partnership. Now, an exclusive partnership, maybe not, right? Maybe you have some other people come in, like the rumors are that there's going to be Lego sports games coming from, I believe, 2K and Take-Two, I believe is the rumor. You know, maybe you license out, have other people make Lego games as well. But do you have no more Traveler's Tales games? No, that'd be a huge mistake. I tweeted about it. The main issue I think that was facing those Lego Traveler's Tales games, there was just too many coming out and they were rushing them, so the quality was just not high. And the market can't survive, 3 Lego games a year. It was pretty close to that at one point where there was like a minimum of 2, and I think there was even a year in there where they had 3. That's just not going to work, dude. There's not that much demand for a Lego game, right? There is demand for a Lego game, but not to the point where you're just dropping these things just constantly. It's not going to work, and that's also going to bring the quality lower because you can't juggle that many games per year. It's just not going to work. So I think they will continue their partnership, but my guess is it's going to be kind of like what I mentioned. I think these games from Traveler's Tales will be spread further apart, bigger budget per game, and get bigger sales long term and up front because the demand is so much higher and the quality is so much higher. So I do think so. Yeah, I think Traveler's Tales will keep making games. I think it'll be a little bit before you see the next one. I don't think you're going to get your next Lego game in 6 to 8 months, but in the next, year and a half to 2 years, that would make sense. Yeah. So I think so. Yoda. So 3.2 million in 2 weeks is unbelievable. That would be amazing for a big giant AAA game from any of the studios, but to get it from a Lego game, fantastic. Absolutely fantastic numbers. I think we had a super chat. Let me hit that super chat. Couple super chats. Timmer here with a 5 super chat. Lowest budget for a game I found was a game called Mad Nurse. Budget was $650 in 1984. Must have been the standard back then. LOL. That is hilarious. Or it's not, it's not dollars, but you know what I'm saying. That is unbelievable. Can you imagine making a game for that nowadays? Even Tunic, which we were just talking about, which was made by one person, but with assistance, I doubt that was that cheap, right? I'm sure there was quite a bit of investment that went into that project from licensing the engine. If it's licensed, I'm actually not sure what engine Tunic's on. I'd have to look into that. But, even just getting the hardware, right, to make the game, it would have been more expensive than that, just building the thing and the dev kits. And yeah, so it's like, that ain't gonna ever happen again. But that is crazy. Benji here, and great research there, Timmer. Benji here with a 5. Ah, great question. Benji, Netflix lots of lost subscribers and they expect the trend to go on. That's the more alarming thing. People are brushing over that. Let's talk about it. Could their lead be challenged by Prime? Yes. With Lord of the Rings show and Disney Plus? Yes. There's a reason that the CEO himself said they're facing competition. That's part of the issue. So let's talk about Netflix really quick. For those of you that don't care about the streaming side of things and only games, I understand, but I cover like industries outside of games too a little bit, movies and TV and things like that a bit, not as much as games. But I think even if you only care about games, this is an interesting question, especially as gaming moves into a subscription fueled industry, right? So Netflix. They lost 200,000 subscribers. This is the first time they've lost subscribers in over a decade. Couple things to point out, right? First of all, the main contributing factor here is closing operations in Russia, which lost them 700,000 subscribers, right? So if they wouldn't have lost those 700,000 subs, they actually would have had a net gain for the quarter. So that is, of course, the main reason it led to an overall loss. But the thing that's worth noting, that doesn't fully explain Netflix's situation, because even without that, if they would have grown, they would have still vastly missed their forecast, because their forecast was they were going to gain over 2 million subs this quarter. And instead, they lost 200,000. So that's a bit of a disaster. But the thing that's more alarming here than that is their forecast for next quarter. And that's the thing a lot of people aren't mentioning. A lot of people are being like, hey, they only lost 200,000 subscribers. Why are people so panicked? Well, it's because they said they're going to lose another 2 million in the next quarter instead of growth. Now, I think there is a hard limit on how high these subscription services can grow. There's only so many households, right? There's only so many people in the entire world that are willing to subscribe to a service. Now, is Netflix at that upper limit? Like there's no room for growth? I would say no. I think there is still room for growth, but the bigger this number gets, by far the harder it's going to get to grow that number, because there's only so many households that are willing to subscribe to a streaming service. There's only a finite amount. There's not an infinite amount of households that are willing to do it. So I think they can still grow, but this is going to start as these subscription services keep getting bigger and bigger into the hundreds and hundreds of millions of subscribers. Their growth rate is going to slow. It is never going to hit this point where it's just infinite growth forever and you're just going to keep adding tens of millions of subscribers, per year, and it's never going to stop and it's just going to go and go. So they're going to have to figure out their business model long term, because at some point you will start to reach those limits. I don't know what that exact number is, but you're going to run into it. So that's one thing worth keeping in mind. Another thing to keep in mind is something I tweeted about. Netflix does horrendous job marketing their shows. To me, there's no debate around it. They do a terrible job. I think they do the worst maybe of any of the major subscription services in marketing their products. Even their biggest shows, Witcher, Bridgerton, Ozark, there's barely any marketing for these shows. Look at how HBO would market Game of Thrones. Look at how Disney will market their Star Wars IP and their MCU IP. Dude, Netflix does a terrible job marketing their stuff. I think the only show that I have seen significant marketing push behind from them is Stranger Things. Outside of that, they're barely marketing anything. And it just gets lost in the shuffle of everything going around. These shows are still huge, but I think they could be even bigger with a better marketing push behind them. Then the prices keep going up. There's just so many factors. Do I think Netflix is doomed? No, but they are facing stiffer competition. Disney Plus is on the way up big time. We'll have to see what their subscriber growth looks like, but I think they will grow this quarter. Amazon Prime has some huge stuff coming. Apple has big stuff, HBO Max. Netflix isn't the only player in town anymore. So yeah, there's a lot of factors. It's very interesting. I think that Netflix isn't doomed, but they do need to make some adjustments. Yeah, I think they need to market their stuff better. They need to be very careful about continuously raising these prices, and they need to build big IP, because that's part of what's fueling stuff like Prime and Disney Plus, or these big franchises and IP. So while Netflix has some big ones, they've got Witcher, they've got Ozark, they've got Bridgerton, they need to really turn those into mega hits and really market those things. So that's a few thoughts, Benji. Timmer, what do you think Arcane Leon is working on now? I can't comment on it because I know what Arcane has in the pipeline. Hate to be that guy, but I know what Arcane's making, so I can't talk about it. I know Arcane's future roadmap, so I'm not going to talk about that. Sorry, I know you spent a super chat on it, but I hate to do it. But I'm not a leaker like certain other people are. Some people leak the stuff they know. I do not leak the stuff I know. I know what Arcane has coming, so I can't talk about it. Sorry, Timmer. Highlander with a 5 super chat. Benji, your thoughts on the new Thor movie trailer and any thoughts on the movie? I'm looking forward more to this than Doctor Strange. Excellent. It performed huge on social media, 209 million views in its first 24 hours. That's the second biggest for any Marvel movie that's not Avengers. So the only one that was bigger than that, Spider-Man No Way Home. So for the box office, looking dang freaking good for Thor Love and Thunder. Looking real good. I mean, to be only second. Now, of course, Avengers Endgame and Infinity War were bigger, but that's to be expected. It's literally the culmination of all of those phase 1, 2, and 3 movies. Like, going to be pretty friggin' hard to beat that, right, as a solo movie. But to only be behind Spider-Man No Way Home for a solo flick, dude, that's amazing. So Thor Love and Thunder looking on track to be a behemoth. I think this will be the first Thor movie to break $1 billion. You know, Thor Ragnarok got over 800 million, but it didn't hit that billy. I think Love and Thunder will hit $1 billion as long as it's good. Personally, I am looking forward more to Doctor Strange because I really like Doctor Strange and I like the weird stuff it looks like they're going to be doing. But I am seeing a lot of people more excited for Thor Love and Thunder. So I don't think you're alone at all, Highlander. And I'm expecting box office prediction over $1 billion. I don't know how much more than that. You know, I'm not saying this is going to do 1.5 to $2 billion. That seems like a stretch. You never know, but it seems like a stretch. But I think it can hit $1 billion if it's good, yeah. Especially considering how high Ragnarok got. $1 billion if it's good. All right, had a feeling we wouldn't get close to hitting all of the free questions today, and that is panning out. So I'm going to go for only 10 more minutes, and I have to go. So I'm going to hit as many more of these as I can, but I have to bounce because I have to go to work. So 10 minutes and I'm out. 10 minutes, I'm out. Thank you for all these questions, everybody. Still hitting a few more free ones, and then I'm gone. So let me hit those really quick. Where do we leave off? Joseki here. Benji, good to see you, Joseki. A few questions, and I hope you'll manage to read. What can Game Pass learn from Netflix? Great question. Do you think third-party devs will stop dumping their games on Game Pass in favor of their own subs, like Disney? And what do you expect from Live Alive and Xenoblade 3 launching in the span of a week? Ooh, that's a great question. I didn't realize they were so close. It reminds me of Shin Megami Tensei 5 and Pokemon back in November, and both ended up successful, but I think it's maybe risky. Great question, Joseki. Okay, so first of all, what can Game Pass learn from Netflix? One thing, market. Market the freaking stuff going on Game Pass, okay? And again, I get that you can't fully throw a huge marketing campaign behind every single game that's going to go on there, right? That's impossible. But anything that's big, whether it's a first-party game, whether it's a third-party game you're getting day one, I will say I think Microsoft does a pretty darn good job of marketing their Game Pass games. So I'm less concerned about that, but it's one thing to continue. You market the stuff. Never just start thinking, oh, we can just throw stuff up on there and just ignore it because the subscriber base will play it, so we don't need to spend any money marketing. Do not do that. Market these games. So first of all, that. Make sure you keep marketing strong, even if you have a lot of subscribers. They need to know why they need to play it, right? So do that. Second of all, I will say spacing is a bit important, right? One other criticism you can have of Netflix is there's so much stuff, right? Netflix, things get lost in the shuffle, even good things, because there is constantly, and when I say constantly, I mean every single week. It's new shows, new movies, new everything, every single week, every single time of the year, which sounds fantastic as a consumer, but the problem is it's very easy for things to get lost. I do think, having solid indie stuff getting in there regularly, solid AAA stuff getting in there regularly is important. And I think they do need to be hitting these big games every quarter. But I don't know that you need to get to the point where you're like, hey, we're going to have a big giant game hitting every freaking week. Because at that point, it might get to the point where stuff starts getting lost in the shuffle and it gets overwhelming. So a solid drip of content, but don't necessarily overwhelm people. And then also, I would say be very careful about raising prices. I think that's dangerous. I don't think that you should never do it. I doubt Game Pass will forever be the price it is. But I'd also be careful about constantly inching that up. Like every 3 months or 6 months, that price, we're going up steady and slowly. I'd be careful. I'd be very careful with that. Raise the price when you think you need to, but be cautious. So that's a few lessons. In terms of Live Alive and Xenoblade 3, I think both will be fine because I think that, and I don't know if it's Live Alive or Live Alive. I honestly have no idea how to pronounce this game, but I'd never even heard of it until that Nintendo Direct. But that and Xenoblade, I think they'll be okay because I really doubt that the expectations from Square Enix are that Live Alive is going to be like this monster. I doubt that. It's a remake of a very old game. And I think it's going to sell pretty decent for that, considering I'm seeing a lot of people talk about it. So if this was like 2 games of Xenoblade 3's expected size, that could potentially be a little concerning because the JRPG fan base is very passionate, but it's not the biggest fan base in the world. Compared to something like a first-person shooter or action-adventure game, there's just more fans of those genres. But I think the expectations from Square Enix are probably, you never know with Square Enix. I mean, they make crazy expectations sometimes, but I think they're probably not super giant. So I think they'll be okay. I think those 2 games will be okay by each other, to be honest with you, Joseki. I think. I don't know, but I think so. Super chat here from Timmer at the end. Do you see Cal Ripken Jr. investing in another game company? The ZeniMax deal seemed to have worked out for him. Jerry Bruckheimer did. You never know. If you have a lot of money, it's smart to invest in games. I'll tell you that. Real smart. I don't see the gaming industry going anywhere. So that guy in particular, I don't know Timmer, but anyone with a lot of money investing in games is smart. They ain't going anywhere, you know. They might go up and down with stock price, but games is just going to get bigger over the next 30 years than it is now. It ain't going to shrink. It's going to grow. So smart. If anyone has spare money and you're looking for things to invest in, I'd invest in Microsoft almost more than anything. Microsoft and Apple, that's about the safest your money will ever be, is putting it into Microsoft and Apple. Those are guaranteed to grow. They're going to grow. Maybe not every single quarter by a giant amount. You put your money in there, the next 10 years, you're going to have more money than you do now. But outside of Microsoft and Apple, another great one, video game companies. They're a little more volatile, but it's only going to keep growing. All right, like 2 more questions and I got to go. I wish I could hit more, but I got to bounce. Miles Morales. Benji Boy, with the shortages continuing to be an issue, could PS5 exclusives like Knights of the Old Republic Remake and Spider-Man 2 become cross-gen titles? I don't know that anything currently planned for current gen only will become cross-gen, but I've said this in the past, Miles. I think you will continue to see cross-gen PlayStation exclusives next year because of these shortages. I don't think it's going to be all their games, but I don't think they're going to just drop PS4 support next year completely because of what we've seen out of the sales numbers for like Gran Turismo 7, for example, which still sold a lot of units on PS4. It really did. You know, PS5 is the lead SKU and it is the one pushing the most software. But with people not able to get new consoles, there are still some PS4 owners out there that are willing to buy these games. So if you're selling 20 to 30% of your units on PS4, it might not sound that big. You're saying, hey, 70% or 80% of these sales are on PS5. Yeah, but for games that are really expensive, 20 to 30% could be your difference in profit. I mean, it can be, you know? So I think you will still see some cross-gen first-party stuff next year. I think 2024, that's over. I really don't think you see anything cross-gen out of first-party in 2024. But I think you will see some cross-gen projects next year. Not all of them. Spider-Man 2, I feel like, is going to be current-gen only because I think Insomniac's going to want to push the boundaries for that. But I think you'll see some stuff. What that's going to be, I don't know, but some stuff. I will say if The Last of Us multiplayer game, Factions 2, if that's next year, I think that'll be cross-gen. I think so. But we'll have to see. Casual Gamers asking if I think a giant company like Apple or Amazon, a tech giant, will acquire Sony Pictures or the PlayStation brand or Sony as a whole. No, I don't think so. That's really hard considering Sony is a Japanese-based company. I know it sometimes might be somewhat easy to forget because so much of their operations now are done in the West. But still a Japanese company. Acquiring a company of that size, if you're not in Japan, is going to be extraordinarily difficult. And they're really big. I can't really see anyone going out there. Now, if they wanted to individually sell a piece of themselves, like Sony Pictures, like you mentioned, I don't think that's impossible. I don't see that as likely because Sony Pictures has had some pretty big hits lately. You know, Morbius was a complete freaking bomb, but they've had some other really big successes lately, so they don't really have any reason to sell Sony Pictures. But I would say that's like more likely than something like acquiring Sony as a whole. That is not going to happen. And Sony ain't going to sell PlayStation because they're so important and integral to their business. So those two, PlayStation brand or Sony as a whole, I'll rank as literally impossible. Not going to happen. Sony Pictures, a very long shot, but not impossible if another major movie studio made a good bid and Sony thought it was worth selling, but I don't think they do. So it's a super long shot, but just out of those three scenarios, that's the one that's the most possible. All right, I think like one more, and I got to go. This one's super fast, so I'll mention it. Jason's asking, when do you think Amy's a Marvel, and he's talking about Amy Hennig's Marvel and Star Wars game will be released? Long time. Both these are ultra early. Both of them were announced with not even a CG trailer. They were just press releases. Marvel, obviously sooner than Star Wars because that was announced before. But years. These are years away. 6 to 7 might be too long. But I will say the soonest you might see one's 3 years from now. Maybe the Marvel project might be out 3 years from now. That's possible, actually, because that was announced a bit back now. I don't remember the exact time, but it's been a little bit. So maybe 3 years or so for the Marvel game, but Star Wars will obviously be further out than that. I would say at least 4, maybe 5 years out for Star Wars. All right, last one. Last one. Shout out to JCat in the chat. JCat, the Switch port of 13 Sentinels performed above expectations for a 2-year-old port. Yeah, it looks like it did good. Do you have any info on how it's doing in the West? Unfortunately, I don't. JCat, I get a lot more info on like these big AAA games than I do on these smaller projects. They're a lot harder to track. I hate to say it, JCat. I have no idea on that one. But I do agree with you, JCat. The Japanese performance looked pretty darn good to me for a port that's that old. Yeah, it looks solid. That was a good launch in Japan. But I don't have info for the West. I'm sorry. I apologize. All right, I'm not going to count that one as that was quick. Hammersley Ford's asking when I think Starfield gameplays and marketing will start. It'll start with their Xbox's show. So Hamish asked in May if that's when Xbox's show is, but I think their show is going to be in June. So I don't know. Probably June, but whenever that Xbox show is. They're not going to show anything before that. In terms of like substantial, right? We've seen like the artwork stuff, but you won't see it until the big Xbox showcase. All right, last one. Expert B, Benji. Since the Nvidia leak has been accurate so far, yeah, it was all real. I made a tweet right after that happened and I deleted it. But whenever it very first leaked, there was all this debate about if it was real or not, and I made a tweet and I was like, somebody messed up. And I had some people in the industry like that work at some of these companies start liking it, and I deleted it because I didn't want any of that on record. So I've known that thing was real for a long time. But yeah, out of it, and again, not every one of those projects will come out because some of it was canceled stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's been legit from the beginning. Which one am I most excited about from the list? Well, a lot of them have already been announced. I would say out of the ones that are not officially announced in any way, shape, or form, other than like nebulous, it exists. BioShock, very excited for a new BioShock. I absolutely love BioShock 1, absolutely love BioShock Infinite, like BioShock 2, but I would say I like 1 and Infinite more. But I'm very interested to see what they can do with the new BioShock. I will say having Ken Levine not involved does make me sad. We know that Ken Levine has big development issues, including some of the stuff that's come out about his new game. But it's not really like, there's not reports that like Ken Levine's a bad person, right? Like sometimes you get these reports where it's like, this person's bad and it's a toxic workplace and they're like insulting. It's not really like that. It's just like Ken's kind of all over the place and he's kind of hard to lock ideas down. And that's why it makes these projects really difficult to develop, because Ken's kind of all over the place on where he's choosing to do. But I really like how ambitious he is with the ideas in his games, whether you feel they deliver or not. Ken Levine's writing for his games, there's not many games that have a narrative like BioShock 1 does. And there's not many games that have a narrative like BioShock Infinite do. Again, whether you think it delivered on what it was trying to do or not, it's a different scenario. But not many games are even trying to talk about the things that Ken Levine's games do. So I'm a little worried, like, hopefully they can keep that, like, real narrative heavy focus and playing a bit risky with what you're talking about, ideas that his games do. Hopefully they can do that, because I think that's kind of the core of what makes BioShock so important and beloved. But yeah, BioShock's going to be up there, and I would say the Final Fantasy IX remake. I'm not the biggest Final Fantasy IX fan, I'll be honest. I know that's super like going to be a hot topic amongst people, but I was always more of a Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy X guy over 9. But I love Final Fantasy. Very curious to see if this is a full-on heavy remake or if it's something that's like kind of in between. So I'm very curious about that as well. But those would be the two off the top of my head: BioShock and Final Fantasy IX remake. All right, everybody, I got to bounce. Wish I could do more, but that's the end of it. I don't think I missed any super chats. Let me make sure no one came in at the end. Nope. All right, didn't miss any super chats. Thank goodness. All right, everyone, thanks for a great chat today. Thank you for all your questions. Sorry if I missed yours. Bring it to the chat next week if I did. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're not already. Follow me on Twitter if you're not already. I'm Benji-Sales on Twitter. And stay safe, play some games, and I'll see you all either in YouTube next week or I'll see you on Twitter here very, very soon. Thanks, everybody. Have a great one. Bye. Peace. Have a great day or night. Bye. Bye.